It is 9:05 and we have 71 participants on. So welcome everybody. We're excited to have you here. My name is Beth Winstead and I'm the administrative liaison for BUILD, Blacks United in Leadership and Diversity, and we welcome you to our July meeting. This is a safe and supportive space for the Black community and our allies. So before we get into the agenda, we wanted to cover some technology items as we are learning how to navigate this technology space. First of all, participants, you're all muted upon entry. If you'd like to speak, you can raise your virtual hand. And if we have the time and the ability to have you speak, we'll do that. BUILD Leadership will be on video, and participants, you're welcome to enable your video or not. It's up to you. We'd love to see your faces, but it's entirely up to you. One important thing we're asking all of our participants to do is to please right click on your name, however it shows up, and change it to your first and last name. If you hover over it and right click, it should give you the option to do that. This will really help us to navigate the participant list and also to assign breakout rooms. And for those of you that are EAP counselors that are with us today, if you would also add at the end of your name that you're a counselor, or note that somehow, so that will help us with the breakout rooms. For a better virtual experience, disconnect from your VPN. You don't need it to participate online in the meeting. If that doesn't work, you can always download and use Zoom for free on your personal devices. If you are having connection problems, try disabling your video. If that doesn't work, try leaving and returning to the meeting. Sometimes that seems to resolve the issue. And then if problems persist, you can call into the meeting at 253-215-8782, and we'll put that in the chat. And then you can click or tap on Meet using the in-call controls, and then click and tap on Merge. And that will merge your phone call with your Zoom experience so that you get to the right breakout rooms as well. If you're on the phone and on Zoom, you will likely go to different breakout rooms and you won't be able to participate well. So that is something that we're trying to get ahead of. If you're unable to attend for any reason, or if you need to leave, know that we're recording this meeting and we'll be posting it as soon as possible, and we'll let you all know when it's ready. We take attendance. It's recorded to determine our active membership for voting purposes. So our active members are those who have attended at least one meeting or event in the previous 6 months. And so that's why we take attendance. If you're calling in just on the phone, you'll need to email us at our build@ofm.wa.gov email address in order for us to record your attendance. All right, so we'll put some of those in the chat box, and it's my pleasure to introduce Taja Blackhorn, who's going to do a land acknowledgement for us.
Kamakarisa kas aris isuar. Good morning and welcome everyone. Sokwata Jurid and Blackhorn, Katsina Nikwa Kosadito, Umachi Isie Kewa, Umachi Martin, Kas Halek, Kas Vera, Awatikwa Upe, Umachi Ani, Karama Kas Kunapsi. I am Tajurid Blackhorn. I'm a singer of the Kosada people from Southern Oregon. I am honored by the Isiwa, child of Martin, grandchild of Halek, great-grandchild of Vera many husbands, mother of Karama and Fox Blackhorn. Our traditional introduction protocols include 5 generations, and I wish to share this with you today, both as a measure of respect and as an educational insight. I've lived over half my life in the traditional homelands of the Medicine Creek Treaty Tribes, moving here when I married into the Squaxin family. For the generosity and welcome I received, I am thankful, and I always offer that generosity back to the people, the spirits, and the lands that are my hosts. Too many times when people speak of our people, of natives in general, it's in a past tense. So I like to share in these land acknowledgements something that's going on currently. With the COVID isolation, the summers, which are usually filled with the powwows and the communication between all the nations, had to be canceled. So we created a social distance powwow, and you can find it on Facebook. You can find it in all the singers, and the dancers are singing and dancing for those who cannot. They're sending prayers of healing to everyone. They're sending prayers of healing to the land itself that is currently being beset by oil spills and chemical spills as well, because those are going to impact our health down the road. I highly suggest checking in and just seeing a couple of them, because they are so intense. They've also gone up and joined, they had gone up to join the people on Capitol Hill and create a sacred space so that other people would not go in and break the sacred space for Black participants. My youngest actually stood guard there for 2 nights and helped bring in the food from the tribes. Be welcome, be happy, be healthy. Ui wawa okapar aris.
Thank you so much for honoring us with that acknowledgement. And just these last couple of minutes, we just asked you to do that when you joined, so I appreciate your graciousness and giving us that honor. So next is leadership updates. So introductions and updates. So my name is Megan, I'm the Build Chair, and I welcome everyone who is been here before and everyone who is new here for the first time. I welcome you. I welcome you to the meeting. Thank you for joining us. So we have some, let's begin the updates. Okay. So Marcus Glasper, he's our executive sponsor. He is the director of lottery. He's an amazing executive sponsor. We are very blessed to have him. Edwina Martin Arnold, you'll hear from her later. She is Build's co-chair, effective July 1st. And Beth Winstead, who opened the meeting for us, is our administrative liaison, who is amazing, and we would not be able to live without. So Build was founded in June 2019. A group of people got together to plan what Build would be. At that time, we didn't even have a name. We were just the Black Community Business Resource Group. Our kickoff event we held in October 2019. We are the newest of 6 business resource groups in the state of Washington. BRGs are sponsored by the Office of Financial Management and are sanctioned to operate as official state business by our governor. You can visit OFM's website to learn more about the BRGs and the other BRGs as well. So official state business means that participants are not required to take leave to participate. If you're experiencing any challenges, please let us know. You can email us at ofm.gov. We currently have over 1,000 general members, so that's great because we're just, well, I guess technically we're still in our first year, but we're moving into the second fiscal year. And so a general member is anyone who receives our communications, but doesn't necessarily attend meetings. We have over 200 active members, which is comprised of those individuals who have attended a general membership meeting or special event in the previous 6 months. So if you attend one meeting and then you don't attend meetings for 6 more months, you will drop off our active membership and just be a part of our general membership where you get notices and communications. So active members, which includes all of you on this meeting right now. And that's why, so if you are in the chat, please make sure you're putting your name, your first and last name, as identified, as we can identify in Outlook, so that we can make sure we add you to our list and you can get our communications, and then that's what adds you to the voting. So please make sure you're putting your name in the chat box for us so that we can make sure we include your voice in decisions. Our active membership is our voting body. We have 5 subcommittees focused on different goals of Build. At the end of our meeting, you will have a chance to connect with one of those subcommittees and learn more. We are an all volunteer organization. And we have some mission, we have our mission, vision, and values. I'll just read our values right now. BUILD is firmly committed to diversity and inclusion and was formed with these values. Working together among us and with our allies is pivotal in accomplishing more than we can do individually. This spirit is at the core of what we stand for and one that needs to continue if we are to be successful. And our mission is the Washington State Blacks United in Leadership and Diversity Business Resource Group exists to improve the experiences of current and future Black state employees, increase the representation of Black people in leadership positions, give voice to the Black perspective in policy discussions about Washington communities, and build each other up as we move forward. Updates, the last couple of months have been extremely busy. So I want to share some of that with you on the line right now. The first is that we've launched BUILD's first annual membership survey. This is for state employees to complete only. We'd like feedback about what's been working so far with BUILD and what could be better to inform our future meetings, events, and actions in this next year. The survey can be found on our website, buildwa.org. The survey will close 7/23. So even if this is your first time, and Beth just added the link to the survey in the chat, even if this is your first meeting, please take the survey. We really want to hear your voices. We want to be a group that is built on and works and advocates for the Black perspective, but we can't do that if we don't get enough Black perspectives in our into consideration. And so we really want you to take that and provide us, growth opportunities, things that we can do better, or what you've enjoyed so far. So in these last several months, we've been extremely busy. The Black perspective has been sought in ways it hasn't been before, and we are grateful for that. So those last several months, we've provided guidance on the DEI training curriculum that will be launched by DES and have been working with the governor's office and OFM on ways to increase accountability and decrease discrimination. We've provided trainings and presentations to Washington State's deputy directors and hiring managers. We participated in diversity and inclusion events at agencies across the enterprise. We provided guidance to several Washington State agencies. We've developed a resource page on our website and shared resources with different organizations. We've held discussions at BUILD meetings. We'll do another one today. We continue to work with OFM and the other BRGs to create policies that build a stronger foundation and credibility for BRGs across the enterprise. We've developed a request form on our website for state organizations to request BUILD participation at an event. We've posted numerous articles focused on social justice through our blog page on our website. And we put on our first annual Juneteenth event, and the video is available through our website events page. Though it was a virtual event due to COVID, meaningful information was still shared. We hope to be able to go all out next year and have a real celebration in person, but obviously we take health seriously first. During June's meeting, we also interviewed the governor on issues concerning the Black community. And again, this meeting was recorded and is now available on our website. In the future, what we're working on is participating at the ICSCW annual conference, the Women's Conference, hosting a joint BRG event on allyship with the other BRGs to include ICSCW, participating at the Washington State DEI Conference in January 2021, that'll be a virtual event, and continuing to find ways to bring the Black perspective to decision-making processes in Washington State. So those are the updates that I have for you today. Please, if you have questions or suggestions for ways that BUILD can help advocate and push the Black perspective, please feel free to email us at build@ofm.wa.gov. And with that, I will pass it on to Edwina for the health and wellness update.
Thank you, Megan. I had to unmute myself there. So I'm doing the health and wellness update, and I wanted to focus on nutrition. And I remembered an article that I had read several years ago. It was a short Ebony article, and I provided a link to it in my slide. But I thought the article was pretty powerful. So I went and found it, and that is going to be the basis of my information today. But the title of the article is Slave Food, the Impact of Unhealthy Eating Habits on the Black Community. The article gives us a couple of facts that I believe are still true today. 47.8% of African Americans are obese, compared to 32.6% of whites. 35.1% of African American children ages 2 to 19 are overweight. Then the article bullet points several things that I put in the slide. Slave food versus soul food. So when we were slaves, the master kept the nutritional food for his or her family and gave the slaves the scraps. And being the wonderful people that we are, we made wonderful meals out of those scraps. And one thing that the article doesn't mention, we were also very innovative. We looked at our environment and found things that were healthy that the master didn't know about, like greens. So we supplemented our diet the best we could. And so these food types or food habits, whatever you want to call them, persisted over generations. And it has led to some unhealthy habits today. And I look at myself because, to be honest, I love chitlins. I love fried chicken. So I look at healthier ways that I can make those types of things. For example, the air fryer is absolutely wonderful. You can just season the chicken and throw it in the air fryer, and it comes out like fried chicken. And I'm from Louisiana. Gumbo is a staple of our life. And I grew up watching my aunts and my mothers mix flour with Crisco to develop the roux, which is the basis of gumbo. And, I take the flour and I skip the Crisco and I just put it in the oven. And you can brown the flour, and it works just as well as the flour mixed with Crisco. So my point is that we can continue to enjoy our traditional foods, but we can look at a way to make them healthier. I don't know how to make chitlins healthier. That'll just be my off day. But anyway, we can look at our foods and try to make them healthier. The second thing that the article brings about is the statement, "We just big boned." And I'll quote from the article here. It says, "My grandmother was a big woman, big women just running my family." Well, the article says that this is false. We are a people of larger stature, but our bodies are not designed to hold as much weight as we put on it. It is important to be cognizant of the difference between embracing our hips, thighs, and overall solid physiques without using these facts to justify being obese or sick. So we may be taller and bigger in stature, but we should not put on more weight than our body can handle. Then the next part of the article talks about gluttony is celebrated. It certainly is in my family. When we get together, we eat and we drink and we have a good time. And so that's okay, occasionally, but the article points out that food should fuel you. That's the purpose of food. So keep that in mind. The next part is food source. That's what I named it. The article calls it Food, Desserts, and the Flaming Hot Culture. And the point of the article is, and I've experienced this in my own life, in low-income minority communities, when you go to the grocery stores, they jack up the price of the fresh vegetables. They jack up the price of fresh meats. And so it's hard to get those things. And a lot of the times in our culture, we rely on convenience stores, liquor stores, or gas stations for snacks and meals. And I'm quoting from the article, "Fresh produce and quality meats. The majority of families in poor neighborhoods are forced to build their diets around foods that are readily available. And that includes the processed foods, the sodas, the bad cuts of meat, etc. So that affects our diet. And the last is lack of physical activity. We got to get up, move around some more. The article gives some tips. Hydration is key. Replace your pop and sugar with water. Fry less, bake more, or as I say, get an air fryer. They're absolutely wonderful. Incorporate at least one vegetable into every meal. Less processed food. Replace candy with fruit. Limit alcohol intake. and 30 minutes of physical activity a day. I've spoken about this before, but when I go to work, I get my 10,000 steps within the workday. Every opportunity that I have, I use the stairs. I work on the 4th floor, so I have plenty of opportunity to go up and down the stairs, but just moving around a little bit more. So that's my tips, my health and wellness tips. Once again, the link to the article is in my slide, but I'd also like to go to the next slide, which, I say I learn something new every day. And I learned that July is Minority Mental Health Month. I had no idea that July was Minority Mental Health Month. And I won't go through the whole slide, but one thing that struck me was I did go to counseling once, and the counselor that I had was a white man, and I didn't feel comfortable. So one of the things that the article points out is that you need a counselor who is culturally competent, to provide a safe, trusting environment, etc. And for me, I think that starts with me looking across the table at a person of color. But it goes through some other things. One thing that I'll point out is the State Employee Assistance Program, EAP, is an absolutely wonderful resource. There's a link to EAP in this slide. And in the next slide, moving ahead to the COVID-19 resource page. A lot of us may already be aware of this, so I won't go through it, but some of us may not. And so information is there on the coronavirus, on employee assistance program, paid leave, etc., unemployment benefits, which I have to look into since we're furloughed. So that information is on that slide. And that completes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edwina. That was really good, helpful tips about food and activity for us. I am going to move us on to the next part, and we're going to have Executive Director of One Washington, Van Smiley, be interviewed, and Phil White will take that. Oops. Uh-oh. Hold on just a second. I don't know. So Phil will take that on for us. So I'll pass it over to Phil.
Good morning, everyone. So I want to give you a quick introduction to Van, so that we can respect this time and we can get as many questions as we can fit in. Van is he's been in public service for over 32 years, and that includes he's been in service for over 32 years in the private sector, military leadership, and management experience. Prior to assuming his role as the executive director for One Washington, he worked as a vice president for marketing and business development in an energy company, and served for nearly 5 years with the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services in a variety of assignments. Most recently as the Chief of Staff Deputy Secretary. He also served as the department's Assistant Secretary for Financial Services Administration, Chief Financial Officer, and Senior Director for the Operations Support and Services Division. Van spent a year as a program manager with a small defense technology firm and served 24 years in the active Army with multiple combat deployments. He worked primarily in light infantry and special operations units, and was the equivalent of a chief operations officer for a very large, globally dispersed organization, and commanded multiple organizations ranging in size from 200 to 3,000 personnel. They include a military garrison, which is equivalent to being a city manager and a 41,000 person community. That would be roughly the size of the city of Lacey. Van is a state of Washington native. On a different note, I can tell you from a personal experience, Van is responsible for the development of a number of leaders throughout his time, and leader development is something that's that he's very passionate about. He's helped me along my leadership journey and is responsible for some of the successes that I've seen as I've transitioned to my role with the Department of Licensing. So it's my honor and privilege to introduce you all to Mr. Van Smiley. Then typically this is where you would hear the applause. Since we're remote and everyone's muted, you can see the reaction from the Build community. Very excited to have you here to be with us.
Thank you.
I wanted to take this opportunity to ask you some questions, and the intent of this interview is to be able to give the Build community an opportunity to understand how you achieve the success that you have, and also to give us some ideas on how we might be able to journey along and promote and achieve levels of success within our own organization and along our path as well. So I want to start with our first question. I think we've got 7.5 hours, so I'll try to move through this quickly to give you time to answer. Our first question is, can you tell us what One Washington is and how will it transform our business?
Sure. So first of all, thanks, Bill, for the introduction. And then I went to gallery view real quick. So I wanted to shout out to Megan. I saw Sharice real quick, Michaela Dolman, a bunch of other folks out there that I know. So thank you. Good to see everybody. And nice to see everybody all shiny and smiling in the morning. And then when you went to that big screen view, because it says spotlight view, first thing I thought about was ear hair and nose hair. I was like, oh no, let me back up. Back up out of this screen. You know, I tell you, the question is what is One Washington all about? And it's replacing the state's core business system. So you have the finance system. That's the agency financial readiness system. This thing, if you're familiar with COBOL-based computer programming language, raise your hand. There you go. There's not too many people out there. There's a couple that raise their hands. They're like this, because you know as well as I do. I saw Edwina's hand go up. This is COBOL computer programming language that predated my time in the early 80s at Seattle University. That's what our financial system is running on. To give it to you in a dollar value, $4.3 billion worth of transactions on the average in a month across 2019. $4.3 billion on a nearly 40-year-old system. You all get paid your furlough money and your regular paycheck through AFERS. Kind of frightening if you just want to kind of make it come to home. So a financial system. We as a state do not have a procurement and contract system. We have 76 disparate systems out there that don't belong to anything, that don't talk to our finance system or our budget system. The budget system stands alone outside of the financial system. So having been the chief financial officer of DSHS, you get your appropriation from the legislature, allot it down to the administrations, and you're manually managing $14.87 billion of federal money, state money, grant money, all these different fund streams. You're porting it into AFERS, the archaic financial system. You're going through your year or your biennium, you're moving that money back out into spreadsheets, pivot tables, and then you're manually reconciling. We've gotten a little bit better, but I'm telling you right now, it's frightening when you end the year at 30 June or 1 July, and as a CFO, you have a variance of about $80 million. And then it takes you 4 months to figure out what happened to that $80 million. And then you can't use it because you had to turn anything left over. We call it reversion money. And it goes away. It's so bad that the legislature anticipates when they budget us and they fund us that we're going to turn back in, us being the entire enterprise, hundreds of millions of dollars every year. So that's just an example. And then we have an HR payroll system that's been in place since 2006. It's our newest, but it too is old. It has to eventually move to a subscription service and be cloud-based, and that we're trying to modify too. So in a nutshell, that's our core business systems that we're trying to replace. And to kind of make it hit home even further, COVID-19 has proven that the public sector is operating with significant technology debts. So you get federal money, the CARES Act, and then the federal government legislature says, we want the CARES Act money to go to this specific demographic group, these small businesses, and these entities. Every state out there is going, okay, let me look at my financial system. I received the money, but can my technology actually get it to the demographic groups you want it to go to? And if you're running something archaic like us, and you don't have something that's nimble, that's modular, that you can create a new drop-down menu in a matter of a couple of days, now you're stuck with this federal money that you can't disperse. That's a high-level example of a current problem that many of the states across the union have had. And I talked to you about the lag and accrual from DSHS. Imagine what it would be like if it was the month of January, 6 months out from close of the year, and you had a variance of $20 million, and then you could look and see if you were underspent, overspent, or on track, and then redistribute that money. You know, for those, any hands up for those that are married. And then your husband comes back with a new truck or a new stereo. I see some hands going like this. And then all of a sudden, you're looking at your bank account, you're looking at your credit card, and he bought them tires that went with it too. And you're sitting there trying to reconcile. You're doing all that real time. It should frighten you that we can't do that as a state. And that is our current state. So hopefully, Phil, I answered your questions as to what we're all about, what we're trying to do at a very high level. That's what I'm watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you for that, Van. The second question that we have for you is, we know that you're the executive director of One Washington, but I'm sure our audience is interested in knowing how you got there. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and some of the highlights of your career that led you to this role?
Absolutely. So I'm from Western Washington. My father retired here out of the old name of Fort Lewis, and I, for the most part, grew up in Stellicum. For those of you that are familiar with that part of the area, I would say North Thurston, Lakewood, Stellicum, pretty diverse. I always remarked when I was a kid, it was like growing up being in the United Nations, and I appreciated that. Went to Seattle University, joined the Army, and did, as Phil said, a number of years in the Army before I retired. My last couple jobs in the Army, one as a garrison commander, one as a chief operating officer for a command that governed Army installations worldwide. All of my staff, with the exception of small numbers, were all civilian. And dealing with federal civilians for the first time, I was like literally a fish out of water. I remember one story of my first day on the job. I was down in downtown DC in this big office building, and it was my very first day on the job. And I came out, and I'm used to being with Army Rangers, jumping out of airplane, helicopter, all this stuff. And I went to school. I came out. Hey, you're getting assigned to this thing called INCOM. I was like, where is that? Is that in Pakistan? I was all fired up. Something new? And they're like, no, it's Installation Management Command, and it's in DC. I'm like, ruh-roh. So I show up my first day. I come out of the office at 5 o'clock. I'm looking to my left and right, and I don't see anybody. I don't hear anybody. It's crickets. And I had this one civilian guy come down the hallway. He's like, hey, Colonel, can I help you? I was looking, I said, like, where is everybody? And I'll never forget his words. He's like, Colonel, I know your background because I read about you, but if you can't figure out how to do your job between 8 and 5, I'm telling you right now, you aren't going to survive here. He goes, the only thing that's going to kill anybody in INCOM is trying to get on the elevator at 5 o'clock. So you need to figure yourself out. So that job, I see some people laughing, that job helped me transition to the civilian workforce, which I have frankly come to love. And then I went on to work for a small tech firm after I retired, tried to move home here because I wanted to come home and leave DC. And then DSHS, I don't know how I got the job. I applied, got it, ended up starting off as a division director there, and then working my way up to be the CFO, and then eventually the deputy secretary. Stepped away for another private sector opportunity, didn't like that. And then have you ever been in a meeting, and be honest, raise your hands if you've been in that meeting and you're sitting there messing with your phone and you're half paying attention. I see people about to turn off their video. You know that's you, just like me. So I see some hands getting raised. That's right. So I was sitting on the steering committee for One Washington as the CFO of DSHS. And all I could ever remember about this program was, man, I'd hate to be in charge of that damn thing, because this is just a pain in the ass. And here I am, fast forward a few years later, when I come back to the state and I look for work and reach out to my network, OFM's like, have I got a deal for you? why don't you come be the executive director for One Washington? So that's how I stepped into this job. And frankly, it has been a blessing to date. I've enjoyed it, and it's been a challenge. That's how I got from point A to right now point B.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You know, like you, I spent a lifetime in the military, and so this next question should I think you've alluded to it already. But what led you to your interest in state and public service? Was it just a natural progression from the military, or was it something greater than that?
So the private sector is wonderful. You have a lot of great people. I mean, you look at some of our just incredible businesses, Amazon, Microsoft, all that kind of stuff, very attractive. You make a ton of money. All that stuff is positive. But for whatever reason, I've always gravitated towards the mission and the people behind the mission. Think about it. Look at the screen right here. There's 90 some odd participants in this thing, 101. And look at what you all do and what you were drawn to. I could pick any one off of the screen and talk to you about what drew you to what you're doing. And it's that helping people. It's the mission. It's something tangible. I've never really been a money guy. It's nice, but if that's something you really want, you can go do that. For me, my heartstrings are all about how can I help public sector organizations progress and move. In your introduction, you talked about growing people. I feel like I have a better impact on bringing people with me in the public sector environment. So I enjoy it.
Van, BUILD was formed as a resource group to promote and advocate the professional development of the Black community across the enterprise, but we know people of color face barriers to success, disproportionality. What would be some of the barriers you faced, and how have you overcome them?
Some of the barriers I faced. Wow, I thought about that. So y'all are probably wondering, is this off the cuff, got a script? So we shared some of the questions, but what it did for me is it made me kind of think about the obstacles and barriers, and it's kind of like, where do you want to start? So I'm going to do this in a Socratic reasoning kind of way. It might not apply to everybody, but give me a thumbs up if you are new to an environment, let's say like a pickup basketball game, and because of the color of your skin, you were picked first. How about and you hated basketball and you sucked at it. That was me. I hated basketball and sucked at it. I see Phil raise his hand, yes. How about you were at a park or a club or some sort of swimming activity and you got picked last, or someone assumed that you didn't swim. Okay, I see a couple hands going up there. I see a thumbs up. I see Ms. Gomez out there laughing. Yes, yes. But when you think about it, not funny. Why do you assume I can't swim? I actually love swimming. And yes, I do have some muscle density. Yes, if I don't swim, I'm going straight to the bottom of the pool, but I love swimming. Actually kind of good at it, at least at the time. Or raise your hand if you were literally the only person of color in some sort of large gathering, 4,000 person entity, an organization, and you felt like, wow, I'm a fish out of water. Raise your hand. Yeah. So my obstacles, I guess the reason why I'm sharing this with you, are no different than your obstacles. And many of you have the same types of stories. I remember I was in the Ranger Regiment. You probably see some of it on my wall back here. Love that organization, love it. When I was in the Army, always wanted to be part of the best. I picked them, they didn't pick me, and I decided to join it. Well, when you do that, with that comes some strings. And one of those strings is, okay, we're gonna go out and do some social activities. Well, at the time, I don't like country Western music, but we're going to a country Western bar. At the time, I didn't have any boots, the tassel, and I didn't have a hat, but that's where we are. I looked like I was going out to the club because that's where I wanted to go. And I was dressed like it. But instead, had to participate with that organization, so I'm doing what the organization does. And it's funny, you fast forward now, and I do listen to Kane Brown I do like me some Jason Aldean here and there. Haven't bought a hat yet, but I'll get there. And I do like the music. My point is that all of us have been in those different things, either as a kid or as an adult, where you're like, no one bothered to ask me how I feel about any of this. They just make assumptions. And based on those assumptions, the group is going to go do what it's going to go do. And many of you, like me, your entire life has been spent that way. And folks don't understand the psychological impact it has on you when you have to take an extra step in just about every decision you make to do something because of that obstacle. And so those are just a kind of a handful of obstacles I thought about when I thought about this this question. And it's kind of sometimes feeling like your voice isn't heard. And I would throw one out there that sometimes people might get sensitive to, but on the flip side, you know, I'm mixed. I'm half Korean and half African American. So, you know, raise your hand if you've ever heard that, you know, oh, he's got that good hair. Anybody ever hear that? I've walked into an audience and just, there we go. You just raised your hand. Yep. Oh, you got that good hair. Well, what the hell does that mean? What am I supposed to do with that? You know, what am I supposed to do? So it comes at you from all different places when it comes to obstacles, whether it's unconscious or conscious. It's real, it's live. It doesn't matter if I'm 54 years old or 18 years old. It's part of my life.
Yeah, and I appreciate your transparency there, Van. I think you speak to a challenge or a list of obstacles that most of us face, and we can directly relate. I can relate to that. A lot of what you said. I do have the hat and the boots. So, but that takes me back to my days when I was young. You know, I dressed like I was coming from an inner city community in Virginia. I'm in Texas. I'm at a country western bar, and just that assimilation to that group dynamic. It took some time, but yeah, I can definitely plug into that. And I think you alluded to the next question. So out of respect for time, I want to get to our last two questions, number 6 and 7. Build is also firmly committed to diversity and inclusion as a primary value. How have you fostered diversity and inclusion on your leadership roles and the roles that you're in? And then expanding a little bit further, how have you helped others foster diversity and inclusion and just create that equitable environment as they lead as well?
So I'll lump a couple things together. First of all, start by listening. That's what I always tell people. Start by listening, and listen through a lens of where someone is as opposed to where you want them to be. Often as leaders, we are trying to listen to someone to get them where you want them to be. As soon as you start down that track, you're really not listening and hearing that person from where they are. That's number one. Number 2, get educated on DEI themes, trends, and issues. In other words, I thought being brown was good enough and I was educated. No, my life's experience isn't education. You got to understand what the data is telling you and why. That way you can help bring others with you. So don't mistake how you've been raised in your life for education. Get educated. When I went through the Certified Diversity Executive Training, I thought that was very helpful. It was actually very humbling because I recognized what I didn't know. Be competent and be confident. I am a firm believer in performance, and performance alone will remove some of those barriers. Now, someone in this audience is probably thinking, well, hell, I can't even get to that because of the obstacles. I understand, and that's a separate challenge. But the way I was brought up, the way I was raised, and the way I've coached myself is perform first. Just perform first. Remove that off the table where no one can question who you are and how you perform. And that puts you in a place to be able to negotiate it and move forward. Network, network, network. This is a network. All right. Network. Rely on your network, leverage your network. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be so proud that you're reticent to ask for help, and find a mentor. Share your aspirations. It's okay to tell people where you see yourself and then drive to that. But pick a mentor and leverage them. And then, lastly, have fun and be yourself. Sometimes these conversations can be so damn heavy. that it can weigh you down. But I always come back to being myself, being true to myself, performing, and you know, what else you want to tell you? That's me, Phil.
Yeah. So Van, we know you're a busy person. We appreciate the time and all that you're doing for our state. So I want to pose this final question. Before I do, I appreciate your authenticity. I appreciate your transparency. I appreciate the guidance you've given me. You've helped me along my journey. And so, so in that spirit, I ask you, what advice do you have for folks new to state government or potentially that have been in state government for a while that someday want to be on a path to replace someone like you? What advice would you share with them?
So the first thing I think about when I hear that question is look at the 98 participants in this particular session. What attracts us all to participate in something like this? I use the words network. This is part of your network. Joining today says something about all of you already. I mentioned the mentor. Pick someone. If you do not have a mentor already, shame on you. Pick someone that is where you want to be, where you see yourself. Garner their lessons learned, those things that apply, those things that don't. Harvest them and learn from them. And then build your network. Olympia, so my house, I live in Tumwater. It's amazing to me how different Tumwater, Olympia, and Lacey are. It also amazes me that anytime before COVID and even after COVID, when I'm in an environment, and it's probably here on this Zoom, where I don't know who's connected in this city because I didn't grow up here. And when you start moving up into upper echelons, you know, so-and-so's cousin works at LNI, this person works over at DOT, they were married back in this, and their brothers. Olympia is a very small networked city. Olympia, different from Lacey, predominantly white, middle-class state government hub, all good things. But if you're coming from the outside into that environment, sometimes hard to crack like anywhere else. So you've got to build that network to help you to get people to gain that trust and confidence in you. And it goes back to be confident. You were confident before you got here. Your confidence and competence helped you get that job. Don't let that get broken down. Stay confident, stay competent, network, pick a mentor. You'll be good to go.
Hey, Van, thanks. I appreciate you taking time out. I look forward to seeing you again in person soon. And I know that everyone here appreciates your wisdom. Very, very sage advice for us. Megan, do you have anything Megan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so we got a question in the comments. Ben, are you open to people reaching out to you to learn more about One Washington as a career trajectory? Would you be
Always, always. It does no good to be standing out here in front by myself. Always. You got to bring people with you.
Yes, yes. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate the honesty and the humor you brought, because it's always fun to laugh, you know, especially during these times. So I appreciate you for spending the time with us. You're welcome to stay as long as time allows, or you're able to, but we really appreciate you providing this information and taking the time to meet with all of us and show us an example of a person of color in a leadership role, giving us that possibility.
And let me thank you. I would tell you, in my job, there are a few things to be inspired about. The fact that we're actually progressing, have picked a software, it's Workday, by the way, and we're doing okay, governor's executive order, getting funding, all those things, but it takes a monumental amount of work. Lately, probably one of the most inspirational things I've done is dial into this Zoom and see all 98 participants as of right now. That fires me up. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Van.